I just feel at home in uncertainty and change, and my life has always been, I've never been organized. I've never known, I've never had like 9 to 5 things. I've never really used calendars much. and I've been navigating the choppy seas of chaos and uncertainty for decades, and I just feel very at home in change. And even with like, I guess I don't make money anymore. Okay, I guess I just need to completely change my. All right, I guess that's like like when there's I like board games, and it's just there's this game Flux that in the middle of the game, the entire rules to the game can change. Like a card changes the rules, and then a new card changes the rules. And I'm just always, with my career the way that it is, it's just like, oh, new rules? Okay, well, just tell me what the rules are and I can adapt them. I guess I feel like kind of bad for people that are just so used to the routine, because I think that is part of why people are having such a hard time and in so much denial, because they're like, no, I've built this system. This is like what gets me out of bed every day to do like this grind and do this thing. And I've built a system where there's no system. I've built a system where I'd never have consistency. I never have a routine. I don't have rituals. And so,
I mean, some workplaces, so, I mean, universities are like this, right? It's built on a backbone of anxiety around needing to measure up. And so under anxious circumstances, right, it's difficult to change. It's really difficult to change. Like, okay, I've got this one thing nailed down, right? The other thing, I was thinking about this. So I don't know if you saw this paper that came out. It was in Nature, and it came out, I want to say, at the end of the summer. It was looking at cell phone data in California and like connecting it to gyms and restaurants and looking at super spreader events. And the primary...
Oh, I think I did see they had like the nice little graph of the primary, like the outdoor dining was number 1, and then it shrunk down from there.
Yeah, so the primary findings out of that were that, like something that we all knew this, right? But it was nice to have it quantified. It was quantified on a big scale because they had tens of thousands of cell phone records. Was that restaurants and gyms are super spreader locations, which is something that we all knew. But one of the other things, the secondary finding, which I thought was really interesting, was that they noted that the distance traveled by cell phones that were in low-income neighborhoods daily was much, much bigger. It was a much longer distance daily. They covered a lot more ground than ones that were living in higher-income neighborhoods. And the hypothesis there was that when you're living lower income, you're compelled, you have to go to work. You're more likely to be an essential worker for that matter, but you have to move because it's the difference between eating and not eating. It's the difference between paying rent and not paying rent, right? Mm-hmm. That for someone who doesn't have a safety net, that it's a lot harder to stay at home. And so I'm hoping to see more analysis soon on what the dynamics of that are, because when I see people throwing off rules, I'm not seeing what I would identify necessarily as essential workers. In fact, all the essential workers that I work with, and especially the lower income ones that I know, are people who are following the rules to the best of their abilities.
Well, that's the thing. They'll have like, some of the lockdown stuff, it almost creates these weird like vectors where it's like there's this comedy like the Comedy Cellar. There's just all sorts of, in live entertainment venues, there's all sorts of people just like trying to get away with, and they advertise like, oh yeah, we're going to operate at 30% capacity or whatever. And then
the Comedy Cellar did that. You mean the one in New York, like down on St. Mark's Place?
The Comedy Cellar. So they're not allowed to do the show downstairs. So instead they're like, oh, we're going to have a meet and greet with comedians upstairs in the restaurant area because the restaurant is like wink, wink, and it's going to be distanced and all of that. And so it's like, it's like I was talking with some friends about this. It's like you go and you're driving a truck that's 13 feet tall, and then there's a thing that says bridge 12 feet tall, nothing over, and like looking and being like, well, is there a cop around? No.
I can get through
all right,
there.
let's go for it. And it's like, no, these aren't like, I'm not a rule follower. I wasn't like, I was always in detention. I don't care about what laws are. I care about what objective reality is. And these guidelines are meant to help us navigate objective reality.
Right. Yeah. I like that analogy. That was good.
And so, but what happens is these loopholes then create these vectors, because then all of the like, ooh, they're allowing this in this air. It's almost like when smoking, indoor smoking became illegal, and then it was like, unless it's a cigar shop or what. And so then like all the smokers would go in there in this loophole. But now it's like all of the highest, the people that are most likely to be spreading COVID because they care the least about it, because they look at this as just like this loophole that they got to like navigate find some trick around so they can pull their mask off as soon as possible. They're all collecting in the same like underground places. And then they're going to their jobs at like a paint store or whatever and working with like my buddy who works at a paint store and takes COVID seriously and doesn't know like, that their coworker's been doing like out going to like comedy shows or whatever with people,